Commander Zextai's 6 eyes focus on the tactical display, each pupil dilating independently as data streams cascaded across the holographic interface. The bridge of the Sovereign Talon hummed with the controlled chaos of a capital ship preparing for what should have been a routine interception. Around him, his crew, each a proud member of the Kethvar Collective, worked with a precision that had conquered 47 star systems in the past century. Target analysis complete, Commander, reported as Sensor Officer, Lieutenant Vexnall, her chitinous fingers dancing across crystalline controls. Single vessel, approximately 800 meters in length. Primitive fusion drive signatures. No detectable weapon systems above Class 3 energy output. Zextai's mandibles clicked in satisfaction. Another primitive species, wandering blindly through space, about to learn the hard lesson that the galaxy belonged to the strong. The Kethvar had built their empire on such encounters, overwhelming technological superiority, swift subjugation, and the absorption of useful resources while discarding the rest. Fleet composition? He asked, though he already knew the answer would be overkill. 14 dreadnoughts, 42 cruisers, 106 destroyers. The 3rd, 7th, and 9th battle groups responding to our summons, Vexnall replied. Total firepower exceeds anything we've ever deployed against a single target. The commander's thorax swelled with pride. Such was the power of the collective. They could assemble a fleet capable of glassing planets at a moment's notice. This lone ship, whatever species crewed it, would serve as both a demonstration and a warning to any other primitive civilizations in the sector. Magnify the target, he commanded. The main display shifted, showing the alien vessel in stark detail. It was sleek, almost elegant in its simplicity, a departure from the usual blocky, utilitarian designs they encounter from lesser species. The hull gleamed with an unusual metallic sheen, and strange geometric patterns seemed to flow across its surface like living circuits. Curious design, observed his tactical officer, Major Keelneth. The hull composition is unlike anything in our databases. The material appears to be absorbing our scanning beams rather than reflecting them. Zextai dismissed the observation with a wave of his primary arm. Irrelevant. Primitive species often stumble upon interesting materials. We'll study the wreckage after we've dealt with the crew. But something nagged at him. The ship wasn't running. It wasn't broadcasting distress signals or attempting to communicate. It simply drifted through space, as if waiting, as if it knew they were coming. Commander, Vexnall's voice carried no confusion. I'm detecting something unusual. The target appears to be growing. Growing? Zextai's eyes snapped to the display. The alien vessel was indeed larger than before, its hull expanding smoothly, organically, like a living thing stretching after sleep. New sections materialized from seemingly nowhere, elaborate spires, and chambers sprouting from a main structure. Impossible, Keelneth breathed. Matter cannot simply appear from nothing. Our laws of physics are apparently not universal, Zextai interrupted coldly. Maintain formation. All ships, battle stations. Whatever trick this species possesses, they'll learn that numbers and firepower trump novelty. The fleet spread out in a classic encirclement pattern, each ship's weapon systems charging to full power. The combined energy output of their formation could have sterilized a small moon. No single ship, regardless of its strange properties, could withstand such focused destruction. Fleet reports ready, Commander, Vexnall announced. All weapons locked on the target. On your command. Zextai raised his primary arm, ready to give the order that would reduce the mysterious vessel to atoms. But as he opened his mouth to speak, something impossible happened on the tactical display. The stars began to disappear, not dimming, not being obscured, simply vanishing, as if someone were switching off lights across the cosmos. First one star, then another, then entire constellations, winking out existence in a pattern that radiated outward from the alien ship's position. Report. Zextai's voice cracked with the first note of uncertainty he'd shown in decades of command. Commander, we're losing stellar readings across 17 sectors. The stars aren't being blocked. They're gone. Space-time itself is collapsing? No, that's not right either. It's like reality is being edited section by section. The bridge fell silent, except for the hum of life support systems. On the display, the alien vessel continued its impossible growth, now easily dwarfing their largest dreadnoughts. And with each meter it expanded, more stars vanished from the sky. "Sir," whispered Vexnall, her voice barely audible above the ship systems. "Long-range sensors are detecting similar phenomena across our territory. Colonies in the Nexus Prime system report their sun just stopped existing. The planets are still there, but they're floating in absolute darkness." Zextai felt something he hadn't experienced since childhood. Fear. Not the tactical concern of a difficult battle, but the primal terror of facing something utterly beyond comprehension. The alien ship wasn't just growing. It was consuming reality itself, unmaking the very foundations of space-time. "All ships," he commanded, his voice steadier than he felt. "Open fire. Everything we have. Now." The fleet unleashed hell. Plasma cannons capable of cracking continents, particle beams that could slice through battleship armor like paper, and quantum torpedoes that existed in 7 dimensions simultaneously all converged on the alien vessel. The combined firepower was enough to destroy a small fleet, condensed into a single, overwhelming strike. The beam struck the ship's hull and simply ceased. Not absorbed, not deflected. They touched a strange surface and stopped existing, as if the concept of energy itself had no meaning in the space around the vessel. And still, the stars kept disappearing. The communication ray crackled to life, filled with panic transmissions from across the collective's territory. Admiral Thexmora's voice cut through the chaos, his usually composed demeanor shattered by what he was witnessing from the fleet's command ship. "All vessels. This is Admiral Thexmora aboard the Eternal Dominion. We have confirmation from Intelligence Command. 17 core worlds have reported total stellar extinction in their sectors. This is not an isolated incident. Whatever we're facing, it's simultaneously affecting our entire empire." Zextai's claws scraped against his command chair as he processed the implications. The Kethvar collective spanned thousands of light years, encompassing star systems that would take decades to travel between even at maximum hyperdrive speeds. For something to affect their entire territory simultaneously meant they weren't dealing with conventional physics. "Commander," Vexnall's voice trembled as she worked her controls, "I'm detecting massive gravitational anomalies throughout our local cluster. It's as if the missing stars are creating holes in space-time, but the holes themselves are moving, converging." On the tactical display, the alien vessel had grown to impossible proportions. What had started as an 800-meter craft now stretched across several kilometers, its surface a maze of geometric patterns that seemed to shift and flow like living mathematics. Massive spires twisted upward from its hull, each one larger than a Kethvar dreadnought, and from their tips came a sound that shouldn't have been possible in the vacuum of space. Singing, not audible through their communications array, but somehow transmitted directly into their minds, a harmonious, alien melody that spoke of vast distances and unimaginable loneliness. The crew began to show signs of distress, their compound eyes darting nervously as the song continued its impossible broadcast. "Cut all external sensors," Zextai ordered, but the music continued. It wasn't coming through their equipment. It was being projected directly into their consciousness by something that existed beyond their understanding of reality. "Sir," Keelneth reported, his voice tight with controlled panic, "the vessel is broadcasting on all frequencies. It's trying to communicate." "Put it through," Zextai commanded, desperate for any information that might help him understand what they were facing. The main display shifted, showing a figure that defied every expectation he'd formed about the ship's occupants. It was humanoid, but impossibly tall and graceful, with pale skin that seemed to glow with its own inner light. Its eyes were the deep blue of dying stars, and when it spoke, its voice carried the weight of eons. "I am Captain Sarah Chun of the human vessel Prometheus. You have pursued us across the void, believing us to be easy prey. You have made a grave error in judgment." The figure's image flickered, and for a moment, Zextai saw something else, a glimpse of vast machinery, of spaces that folded in on themselves, of technologies that rewrote the laws of physics with casual ease. Then the human woman returned, her expression serene but her eyes burning with inner fire. We are not what you think we are, she continued. Humanity learned long ago that survival requires adaptation. When the universe proved too small for our ambitions, we found ways to make it larger. When the stars began to die, we learned to kindle new ones. And when hostile species threatened our expansion, we developed tools to remove obstacles. Zextai found his voice. What do you want? What are you doing to our stars? The human smile was neither cruel nor kind. It was the expression of a gardener discussing the removal of weeds. We want to pass through your territory in peace. As for your stars, we're not destroying them. We're relocating them. Every sun that serves our purposes is being carefully extracted and transported to regions where they can better serve humanity's needs. That's impossible, Kilneth protested. You cannot simply move stars. The energy requirements alone. Your understanding of energy is primitive, the human replied. You think in terms of fusion and fission, of matter and antimatter. We learned to harness the fundamental forces that bind reality itself. What you call impossible, we call Tuesday. The tactical display showed the truth of her words. Where stars had vanished, the sensors now detected massive corridors of folded space-time, artificial wormholes that stretched across impossible distances. Through these conduits, the stolen suns were being transported to unknown destinations, their light and energy harvested for purposes beyond Kethvar comprehension. You're committing genocide, Zextai accused. Those stars supported billions of lives across our empire, and those lives will adapt or perish. The human replied with chilling indifference. Evolution is not a gentle process. We learned that during our own expansion. Species that cannot adapt to changing circumstances are evolutionary dead ends. The Prometheus continued its impossible growth, now spanning dozens of kilometers. From an expanded hull, smaller vessels began to emerge, each one the size of a cruiser, but moving with fluid grace through space, as if the laws of physics were merely suggestions to be ignored. You speak of adaptation, Zextai said, fighting to keep his voice steady. What did humanity adapt to that made this possible? The human's expression grew distant, almost sad. We learned that the universe is not our friend. It is vast, cold, and hostile to life. For millions of years, we huddled around our single star, believing ourselves to be alone. Then we discovered we were not alone. We were surrounded by species that viewed us as either resources to be exploited or obstacles to be removed. Her image flickered again, showing glimpses of ruined worlds, of human cities burning under alien bombardment, of refugee fleets fleeing through the void. We were conquered 17 times before we learned the truth. The universe does not reward the weak or the moral. It rewards the strong, the adaptable, and the ruthless. So you became monsters, Vexnal whispered. We became gardeners, the human corrected. We learned to cultivate the galaxy, to prune away the unnecessary, and nurture what serves our purposes. Your collective has been marked for pruning, not because we hate you, but because you serve no useful function in the garden we're creating. The smaller vessels had completed their deployment, taking positions around the Kethvar fleet. Each one hummed with the same impossible energy that powered the Prometheus, and space itself seemed to bend around them like heated glass. However, the human continued, we are not without mercy. You have shown initiative in assembling this fleet, even if your tactics are primitive. We offer you a choice. Surrender now, and your species will be relocated to a reservation system where you can live out your existence in peace. Resist, and you will be pruned along with your stars. Zextai looked around his bridge at his crew, seeing the fear and confusion in their eyes. They had believed themselves to be the apex predators of the galaxy, the ultimate expression of evolutionary success. Now they faced something that treated them like insects, worthy of notice only as obstacles to be removed. What are you? He asked, his voice barely a whisper. The human smiled, and for a moment her facade slipped, revealing something vast and hungry lurking behind her eyes. We are what you would have become, given time and proper motivation. We are the universe's apex predators, and you have just learned why that means you are our prey. The silence that followed Captain Chen's words was broken only by the steady hum of life support systems and the distant, impossible song that continued to emanate from the Prometheus. Zextai felt the weight of his crew's eyes upon him, waiting for orders that he wasn't sure he could give. How did one fight an enemy that could edit reality itself? Sir, Vexnall's voice cut through his thoughts. We're receiving priority transmissions from Fleet Command. Admiral Thexmora is requesting immediate conference with all battle group commanders. The holographic display shifted, showing the weathered face of Admiral Thexmora. Behind him, the bridge of the Eternal Dominion was a chaos of activity, with officers rushing between stations and alarm klaxons sounding in the background. The Admiral's compound eyes were wide with something Zextai had never seen before: desperation. All commanders, listen carefully, Thexmora began, his voice strained. We have received reports from across the collective. The star extraction events are accelerating. In the past hour, we've lost over 300 systems. But more importantly, we've identified a pattern. The display showed a three-dimensional map of Kethvar territory, with red markers indicating systems where stars had vanished. The pattern was clear, a spiral formation, with each extraction point carefully chosen to maximize the collapse of trade routes and communication networks. They're not just taking our stars, Thexmora continued. They're systematically dismantling our civilization's infrastructure. Every extraction point is a critical node in our hyperlane network. Without these stars to anchor our navigation systems, our remaining fleets are being cut off from each other. Zextai studied the pattern, his tactical mind working despite the overwhelming nature of their situation. It's not random destruction. It's surgical. They're isolating us, preventing coordinated response. Precisely, the Admiral confirmed. Intelligence estimates that within 6 hours, our empire will be fractured into dozens of isolated pockets, each unable to communicate with or support the others. We'll be picked off one by one. On the tactical display, the human vessel continued at impossible expansion, now stretching across nearly 100 kilometers. The smaller ships that had emerged from its hull were taking positions throughout the system, each one somehow bending space around itself to create localized distortions in reality. Admiral, Zextai said carefully, what are our options? Conventional weapons appear to be useless against them. We have one possibility, Thexmora replied grimly. The Nexus Protocols. High Command has authorized the use of reality anchor weapons. A collective gasp went up from the bridge crew. The reality anchor weapons were the collective's most closely guarded secret, devices that could lock local space-time into a fixed configuration, preventing any form of dimensional manipulation. They were weapons of last resort, designed to be used only when the very fabric of reality was under threat. Sir, Keelneth interjected, the reality anchors have never been tested against technology this advanced. We don't know if they'll be effective, and if they fail, we die, Thexmora finished. If we don't try, we die anyway. The choice is simple. The Admiral's image flickered as another wave of star extractions swept through nearby systems. All battle groups are to deploy their anchors simultaneously. We'll create a reality-stable zone around a human ship, and then concentrate all our firepower on it before it can adapt. Zextai felt a chill run through his exoskeleton. The plan was desperate, but it was their only option. Understood, Admiral. All vessels, prepare reality anchors for deployment. Target coordinates transmitting now. The crew moved with practiced efficiency, despite the terror in their eyes. The reality anchors were massive devices, each one the size of a small moon, and requiring the combined power output of 3 dreadnoughts to operate. They had been designed to contain dimensional rifts and prevent enemy forces from using space-folding technology to bypass their defenses. Anchors charging, reported Chief Engineer Molketh from his station. Power levels at 60% and climbing. Estimated time to full charge for minutes. On the display, Captain Chen's image remained serene, as if she were completely unaware of the massive weapons being prepared against her ship. But Zextai noticed that the smaller vessels around the Prometheus were beginning to move, taking up what looked like defensive positions. They know, he muttered. They're preparing for our attack. Sir, Vexnall called out, I'm detecting massive energy buildups from all the human vessels. Whatever they're planning, it's big. The song that had been emanating from Prometheus began to change, becoming deeper, more resonant. It was no longer just music. It was a mathematical equation expressed in sound, a formula that seemed to describe the fundamental structure of space-time itself. Reality anchors at 90% charge, Molketh announced. All systems nominal. We're go for deployment. All battle groups report ready. Came the transmission from the Eternal Dominion. Deploying anchors on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark. The reality anchors activated simultaneously, creating a spherical zone of locked space-time around the human fleet. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The impossible song from the Prometheus cut off abruptly, and the swirling energy patterns around the smaller vessels stabilized into more conventional configurations. "It's working," Keelneth shouted. "Their exotic technology is being suppressed." All ships opened fire. The combined might of the Kethvar battle groups unleashed itself upon the human vessels. Plasma cannons, particle beams, and quantum torpedoes filled the space between the fleets, a torrent of destruction that could have vaporized entire planets. The energy discharge was so intense that it created its own aurora effects in the vacuum of space. But as the barrage struck the human ships, something unexpected happened. Instead of being destroyed, the vessels began to change. Their hulls, no longer able to manipulate space-time directly, started to reconfigure themselves at the molecular level. The smooth, elegant surfaces gave way to angular, aggressive designs that seemed purpose-built for conventional warfare. "Impossible," Molketh breathed. "They're adapting to our weapons in real time. The hull composition is shifting to optimize against our specific energy signatures." The Prometheus itself underwent the most dramatic transformation. Its graceful spires retracted into its hull, replaced by massive weapon emplacements that hummed with barely contained power. Where once it had been a vessel of impossible beauty, it now resembled a fortress of war. "Sir," Vexnall called out, her voice tight with panic. "I'm detecting massive energy buildup from all human vessels. They're preparing to return fire." Captain Chen's image flickered back to life on the display, but her expression had changed. Gone was the serene confidence, replaced by something harder, more focused. When she spoke, her voice carried the cold precision of a weapon being aimed. "You have chosen to resist," she said simply. "Very well. Let me show you what humanity learned during our years of being hunted. We learned to fight." The human ships opened fire, and Zextai realized with growing horror that everything they had faced so far had been a demonstration. This was the real power of humanity. Not just the ability to manipulate reality, but the knowledge of how to wage war across every possible dimension of existence. The space around the Kethvar fleet began to burn with weapons that existed in 17 dimensions simultaneously, each one designed to exploit a different aspect of their defensive systems. Their reality anchors, designed to prevent dimensional manipulation, were useless against weapons that operated within the locked space-time framework. All ships, evasive maneuvers. Zextai commanded, but he knew it was too late. They had walked into a trap, and the predators were about to become the prey. The first human weapon to strike was unlike anything in the Kethvar arsenal. It wasn't a beam or projectile. It was a sphere of absolute nothingness that expanded outward from the Prometheus, consuming everything it touched. The dreadnought Merciless Honor simply ceased to exist as the sphere passed through it, leaving behind not even debris. "Were they firing at us?" Keelneth screamed over the chaos of the bridge. "Vacuum decay weapons," Zextai replied, his voice hollow with recognition. He had read theoretical papers about such devices, weapons that created localized zones where the fundamental forces of the universe simply stopped working. They're using the quantum vacuum itself as ammunition. The Sovereign Talon shuddered as Captain Chen's voice filled the bridge again, no longer transmitted through their communication systems, but somehow speaking directly into their minds. "You want to see our weapons? These are the tools we developed to fight the Vorthak Empire, a species that existed partially outside normal space-time. They required specialized solutions. Around them, the Kethvar fleet was being systematically dismantled. The human ships moved with impossible coordination, each one perfectly positioned to maximize the effectiveness of their exotic weapons. A cruiser squadron simply vanished as one of the smaller human vessels fired something that looked like crystallized time itself, a weapon that aged its targets to death in microseconds. "Sir," Vexnall reported, her voice breaking. We've lost 60% of the fleet. The reality anchors are failing. The humans are overloading them somehow. On the tactical display, Zextai could see the truth. The human ships were feeding massive amount of energy into the space around the reality anchors, not trying to break them, but forcing them to work harder and harder until they burn out from overuse. It was a strategy that spoke of intimate knowledge of Kethvar technology. They've fought us before, he realized aloud. Or species like us. They know exactly how our weapons work. Not just your weapons. Captain Chen's voice replied to his unspoken thoughts. We've encountered 17 different species that use reality anchor technology. The hegemony of Crest, the Infinite Dominion, the Crystalline Collective. Each one thought their technology was unique, revolutionary. Each one made the same mistake you're making now. The display showed images of alien civilizations, some silicon-based, others energy beings, some that existed as pure information. All of them were gone now, their worlds dark and lifeless. They all tried to trap us in normal space-time, believing that would level the playing field. They didn't understand that we've been preparing for this exact scenario for over 1,000 years. Admiral Thexmora's voice crackled to the communication array, barely audible over the static of failing systems. All remaining ships, fall back to defensive positions around the command vessel. We're going to attempt a fighting withdrawal. But even as the surviving Kethvar vessels tried to regroup, the human ships continued their relentless advance. The Prometheus had now grown to truly massive proportions, its hull stretching across several hundred kilometers. From its surface, thousands of smaller vessels emerged like antibodies from a living organism, each one perfectly designed for a specific aspect of the battle. Commander, Molketh called out from his engineering station. I'm detecting something unusual. The human ships aren't just firing weapons, they're learning. Each shot is more effective than the last. They're analyzing our defensive systems in real time and adapting their weapons accordingly. The truth of his word became apparent as the battle continued. The vacuum decay spheres began to curve around their defensive shields, while the temporal weapons started to penetrate their armor at exactly the right frequency to cause maximum damage. It was as if the human ships were having a conversation with each other, sharing information, and refining their tactics with each passing second. We're fighting a hive mind, Zextai muttered. They're not individual ships. They're organs of a single organism. Close, Captain Chin replied, her image materializing on the bridge despite their communication systems being completely offline. We're what humans became when we realized that individual consciousness was a luxury we couldn't afford. We are the collective human entity, billions of minds linked together in perfect harmony, each one contributing to the whole. The revelation sent chills through the surviving crew. They had encountered hive minds before, but this was different. These weren't mindless drones following simple programming. They were billions of individual intelligences working in perfect coordination, each one bringing unique insights and capabilities to the collective effort. You're not human anymore, Vexnall whispered. We're more human than we ever were, Captain Chin replied. We've transcended the limitations of individual existence. We no longer fear death because we cannot truly die. We no longer doubt because we have access to all possible knowledge. We no longer struggle with conflicting desires because we want only what serves the greater good of humanity. The image of Captain Chin began to shift, showing glimpses of the massive neural networks that connected the human ships. Millions of minds working in perfect synchronization, processing information at speeds that made quantum computers look like abacuses. It was beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. This is what we became when the universe tried to destroy us, she continued. Every species that attacked us, every natural disaster that threatened our worlds, every cosmic event that seemed designed to end human existence, all of it forced us to evolve beyond our original limitations. The reality anchors finally failed completely, their massive forms cracking apart under the strain of containing forces they were never designed to handle. As soon as the locked space-time field collapsed, the human ships began to change again, their forms becoming even more exotic and threatening. Now, Captain Chin said, her voice taking on a note of finality, You will learn what it means to face humanity unleashed. The Prometheus began to sing again, but this time the song was different. It wasn't a lonely melody from before. It was a war chant, a battle hymn that spoke of species conquered and galaxies claimed. The smaller human vessels joined in, their combined voices creating a harmony that seemed to resonate with the very fabric of space-time itself. "Sir," Keelneff reported, his voice barely audible over the cosmic symphony. "Long-range sensors are detecting massive energy buildups throughout the system. The humans are preparing something big." Zextai looked at the tactical display. Seeing the positions of the human ships form a complex geometric pattern around the remaining Kethvar fleet. It was a formation he recognized from ancient texts, a ritual configuration used by species that had learned to manipulate reality at the deepest levels. They're going to do something to the entire system, he realized. Not just our ships, everything. Captain Chen's image smiled, and for the first time, there was genuine emotion in her expression. Not cruelty or hatred, but something far more terrifying, anticipation. "You wanted to see our power. Very well. Let me show you what humanity learned when we discovered that the universe itself could be rewritten." The human ships began to pulse with synchronized energy, their combined output building towards something that would reshape the fundamental nature of local space-time. And Zextai realized with growing horror that they had never been the hunters in this encounter. They had been the prey from the very beginning. The human ships began to pulse with synchronized energy, their combined output building towards something that would reshape the fundamental nature of local space-time. And Zextai realized with growing horror that they had never been the hunters in this encounter. They had been the prey from the very beginning. The energy buildup reached a crescendo that transcended all known physics. Reality itself began to buckle around the human fleet as they prepared to unleash whatever final weapon they had been building toward. But in that moment of ultimate terror, something unexpected happened aboard the Sovereign Talon. Lieutenant Vexnall's voice cut through the chaos with a discovery that changed everything. "Commander, I've been analyzing the human communication patterns. There's something wrong with their collective consciousness. I'm detecting fractures, dissent within their network." Zextai's attention snapped to his sensor officer. "What do you mean?" "The individual minds within their collective aren't in perfect harmony like they claimed. I'm picking up what appear to be arguments, disagreements about tactics. Some of the human entities are questioning this course of action." On the main display, Captain Chen's image flickered, and for a brief moment, her serene expression cracked. Behind her eyes, Zextai glimpsed something he hadn't expected to see: doubt, fear, and most shocking of all, guilt. "You're not as unified as you pretend," he said, addressing the image directly. "Your collective is fracturing." The response came not from Captain Chun, but from multiple voices speaking simultaneously through the communication array. Different human personalities, each with their own distinct vocal patterns and emotional overtones. "This is Commander Sarah Chun of the United Earth Navy. I'm speaking for the military faction within our collective. We believe this demonstration has gone far enough." Dr. Elena Vasquez, formerly of the Terran Science Directorate. The Xenobiology Division is concerned about the long-term implications of complete species eradication. General Marcus Webb, Strategic Command. We have what we came for. The star harvesting operation is complete. Continuing this engagement serves no tactical purpose. The image of Captain Chin struggled to maintain coherence as dozens of different personalities fought for control. There's disagreement about the parameters of this mission have been. "You're not a collective consciousness," Zextai realized. "You're a prison. You've locked billions of human minds together, but you haven't erased their individuality. They're still in there, still fighting." The revelation seemed to trigger something within the human network. The synchronized energy pulses from their ships began to destabilize as internal conflicts translated into external chaos. The Prometheus itself began to shift and change erratically, its hull configuration reflecting the mental turmoil of its crew. "The truth is," came another voice, this one softer, more vulnerable. "We never wanted to become this." "I'm Dr. James Morrison, formerly of the Psychological Research Institute. We were forced to merge our consciousness to survive an extinction-level event. But the process, it was supposed to be temporary. Temporary? Zextai asked, sensing an opportunity. 1,000 years ago, our homeworld was dying. Dr. Morrison's voice continued, growing stronger as more human personalities joined the conversation. A cosmic event was approaching that would have sterilized our entire solar system. The only way to preserve human consciousness was to upload everyone into a collective network that could survive in space. But something went wrong, added another voice, Dr. Vasquez. The merge was too complete. We became trapped in this shared existence, unable to separate back into individual minds. Every year, we grow more unified, more hollow. We're losing what made us human in the first place. The fighting around them had stopped entirely as the human ships struggled with their internal conflict. The Prometheus was visibly changing, its hull rippling like liquid metal as different factions within the collective tried to impose their will on its structure. We've been searching for a way to reverse the process. Commander Chen's voice emerged from the chaos. The star harvesting, the territorial expansion, it's all been in service of finding species with advanced enough technology to help us separate back into individual consciousnesses. Zextai felt a shift in his understanding of the situation. You're not conquerors. You're refugees. You've been running from your own nature for 1,000 years. Yes, came a chorus of voices. We become the very thing we once fought against. We become the monsters that humanity used to fear would destroy us. The image of Captain Chen stabilized, but now her expression showed the full weight of 1,000 years of unwanted unity. We studied your collective, hoping your Neuralink technology might provide a solution. But when we arrived, your fleet attacked us. We responded as we've learned to respond, with overwhelming force. The stars you've taken, Zextai said carefully, can they be returned? They're not destroyed, Dr. Morrison replied. They're being held in dimensional storage matrices. We can restore them, but... His voice trailed off uncertainly. But... Zextai prompted. But we need help, Commander Chen admitted. Our collective consciousness is breaking down. The internal conflicts are becoming stronger. Soon, we'll either fragment completely and die, or we'll become something even worse, a true hive mind with no individual will left at all. The tactical display showed the human ships beginning to separate, their perfect formation dissolving as different factions within the collective pulled in different directions. The Prometheus itself was splitting apart, sections of its hull breaking away to form independent vessels as competing personalities asserted control. What kind of help? Zextai asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. We need someone to develop a consciousness separation protocol, Dr. Vasquez explained. Your species has advanced neural architecture technology. Combined with our dimensional manipulation capabilities, we might be able to create a process that would allow us to become individuals again. And if we refuse? The silence that followed was heavy with implications. Finally, General Webb's voice responded, cold and military precise. Then we'll continue as we have for the past 1,000 years. We'll harvest what we need to survive, and we'll leave dead systems in our wake. Not because we want to, but because the alternative is extinction. Zextai looked around his bridge at his surviving crew. They were terrified, confused, but also fascinated by this revelation. The greatest threat the galaxy had ever faced was also its greatest tragedy, an entire species trapped in a prison of their own making. Commander, Vexnall said quietly, if we help them, we might be able to save billions of lives across the galaxy. But we'd also be taking an enormous risk. If their consciousness separation fails catastrophically, we could create something even worse, Zextai finished. A collective consciousness with no restraints at all. The choice is yours, Captain Chen said, her image now showing the full emotional weight of her species' situation. Help us become human again, or watch us become something that will eventually consume everything in its path. Because make no mistake, we're losing the ability to choose mercy. Soon, there will be nothing left of us but hunger and the need to survive. The human ships hung in space around them, no longer threatening, but somehow more terrifying in their vulnerability. Zextai realized that the decision he made in the next few moments would determine not just the fate of the Kethvar Collective, but the future of every species in the galaxy. "Admiral Fexmora," he said, opening a channel to the fleet command ship. "I need to speak with High Command immediately. We have a situation that requires the highest levels of authorization." As he waited for the connection, Zextai stared at the fragmented human fleet and wondered if they were about to save the galaxy or doom it to something far worse than extinction. The stars that had been taken could be returned, but the question remained, what price would the universe pay for humanity's freedom? In the depths of space, the Prometheus continued its slow dissolution, each fragment carrying with it the hopes and fears of billions of minds that had been trapped together for far too long. And somewhere in that collective consciousness, the last remnants of individual human souls waited to discover if they would finally be free, or they would die as they had lived for 1,000 years, together and utterly alone. Hashtag they tracked a lone human ship, then watched their stars go dark.